Why are scientists atheists? Look friends, there's no need to beat around the bush on this. The rate of atheism among scientists is much higher than that of the general population. This has been a fact for the past few centuries. In general, as people engage with physics and sciences like chemistry, they tend to lean towards atheism. This is actually an unexpected outcome from the perspective of the Quran, because the Quran encourages examining the universe in countless places. Mountains, the sky, the growth of plants, everywhere is filled with evidence. But the more scientists study it, the closer they come to atheism. Now let me tell you something even more intriguing that we need to confront. Those who engage deeply with the universe and receive award after award from humanity, those who split atoms if they are atheists or fail to witness enough evidence of monotheism in the universe, the Quran categorizes them as ignorant and threatens them with eternal hell for failing to properly study this sacred universe. So who, according to the Quran, is the best at this? I remind you that when I say this work, I don't mean physical worship, fasting and so on. I mean dealing with the universe. As the best in this business, the most scholarly, he shows us someone who lived 1,400 years ago, who was illiterate, who did not even know how to read or write, who did not produce any technology, and says he's the one you should take as an example. What do you mean? How can we, as modern physicists, chemists, biologists, etc., living in the 2000s, take someone who lived 1400 years ago as the best scholar for the study of the universe and take his method as an example? And on the other hand, does an atheist scientist truly not understand studying the universe? Even if they split the atom into its components? What is a book? How do we define a book? Something where the letters of the alphabet are arranged on paper through ink to form meaningful words and sentences, right? Now, imagine a professor giving a student his own book as a project assignment. The student has to deal with the book for months. Let him study and work on it very intensively. Let him have days when he is very worn out and difficult. And finally, completing the assignment after all these tough efforts. And here comes the presentation day. Yes, Çağrı, are you ready? Let's go. I'm ready, Professor. Shall I begin? Professor, I examined your book in great detail from start to finish and reached very important conclusions. Professor, the total thickness of your book is 3.73 centimeters, its height is 17.46 centimeters, and its width is 11.67 centimeters. Professor, your book contains exactly 215 sheets of deoxyric paper, each approximately 3.517 millimeters thick. This is truly an incredible figure. Professor, the book contains a total of 5.982 grams of black, Belika's brand ink. And with this ink, 1,652 A letters, 442 B letters. Thank you very much for making me give such a presentation. That was my presentation. I believe I have taken my scientific level to a much higher place. You'll give me an AA now, won't you, teacher? Now, the question is this. Is this student a scholar or an ignoramus, even though he has dealt with the book in great detail and has been given accurate information? Did he end up gravely insulting the book and its author or not? So friends, just being in contact with the book and even being given accurate information does not save us from ignorance. There are two ways to engage with a book. One, engaging with the book as the student in the story did, not as a book, but merely seeing it as an object and measuring it purely, focusing on materials like ink and letters within it for their own sake, thinking as if they inherently have meaning, which is ignorance. Even if I had done doctorates on ink, even if I were a professor in the field of paper, even if I were highly skilled at counting letters and had won awards for it, my ignorance would remain unchanged. Is that correct? And I would have committed the greatest insult to the book and its author. So what is the correct way to engage with a book? To reading the book. That is, dealing with the materials in the book, such as ink and letters, not for their own sake, but to understand the meaning that emerges from them, that is meant by them, which we simply call reading. The sole purpose of a book is entirely this. Is that correct? To the extent that you read a book, You become a scholar of it and engage with it in the way the author expects. So, what does it mean to read? Let's take a closer look at this. Reading is deriving the unobservable from the observable, friends. In other words, a text normally consists of the arrangement of these 29 meaningless elements in a material sense. But when they are arranged in a certain order, meaning emerges, the meaning that emerges is abstract. The eye does not see, so the mind sees. For instance, let's assume we're looking at this sentence, "Mom, I love you," from a book. Now, in the expression "mom" here, in terms of what is observable, so what the eye sees is just a little bit of ink turning once into A, twice into N, and once into E. There's nothing else. There's no meaning or anything. Sometimes objections arise here. How come I can see the meaning with my eyes? No, we don't see it with our eyes. The easiest way to understand this is as follows. If a Japanese person who doesn't know Turkish were to come here, they could also observe and measure this expression, but they wouldn't grasp the meaning you derive. Meaning is something you cannot find in the letters or the ink itself, and it is unobservable and immeasurable. Some people might say the following: well, what you call meaning might actually be the activation of previously learned things in the brain. That doesn't concern me. What I'm emphasizing here is this: the fact that you are interested in a text in a book for something you cannot find in a book, something you cannot observe and measure in a book. This is exactly what we mean by reading a book. Using observation to reach the unobservable. Here's where the entire problem lies. If you define a scientific method according to your own ideas and exclude discussions about things that cannot be observed or measured and impose dogmatic rules like it's not scientific, you will never be able to read the book nor extract meaning from the ink. And imagine someone subjected to this ideology for 40 years. For them, there's nothing left but some ink forming certain shapes. Just an R once, N and twice, and so on. Look, this expression reminds us of a being that gave birth to us. Here, the author expresses their love for it. The moment you say this sentence was written for them, you step outside the realm of science and are accused of ignorance. Because even if the person in front of you is an ink expert, he is a meaning atheist because of the method he has been using for years. Because meaning is not scientific. Look, this is very important. The price of approaching a book with the current scientific rules is that you cannot read it. This is probably the worst thing you can experience with a book. I think the issue is somewhat understood. So friends, the Quran presents the universe as a great book that continues to be written. I repeat, look, we may accept or reject this, but at least we need to know it as an idea. Revelation suggests that this is a book, not just a body. And that's why the very first command is read. Look, this is often misunderstood and manipulated as encouragement to read books. Did Prophet Muhammad start reading lessons after this command? No, right? That wasn't the intention. The matter was the knowledge that the universe is a book and should be read in the name of the Creator Lord. Similarly, in the Quran, the concept of verse is used not only to describe the sentences of the Quran, but for all existence. The growth of plants, the division of DNA, the birth of humans, and so on, everything is considered verses to be read according to the Quran. This changes everything. It overturns all our modern balances. Does merely engaging with a book and providing accurate information save us from ignorance, friends? No. The method was still very important. By measuring the ink, counting the letters, we could still engage and provide accurate information, but this would plunge us into the depths of ignorance. This is our engagement with the book of the universe. As the student in the story did, our distance from the sun is this much. The rotation speed of the atom is this much. Our blood values are at this level, but if we remain in this mode and fail to read their meaning, we become ignorant in the author's eyes, measuring the book without understanding its meaning. If the universe is a book, you can only escape ignorance by engaging with it through reading. So, is the universe a book or not? Or how does one read it? We will examine this in detail in the next section through an example, specifically a blood sample. But the main point I want to draw attention to in this section is this. Our current sacred scientific method doesn't even allow us to discuss this. It doesn't even open the debate on whether there is meaning or not. So, what it's saying is, let's eliminate the possibility of this universe being a book. Let's not even consider this. If you remember, the ultimate goal in the act of reading was not something observable or measurable. Reaching meaning that is unobservable and immeasurable was about establishing a connection of meaning with the author. Well, our current method already shuts that door from the start. You know, according to the scientific rules that we use now when you're working on pieces of the universe, You cannot refer to something that cannot be observed or measured. You can't mention the author and the meaning. Giving a paradigm example referring to them is an inexcusable sin in naturalism religion. Everything is energy and substance. No more. All you have to do is to measure this substance and energy and to produce it. Not to read. If a brain is exposed to this ideological pressure for years, it becomes blind to the meaning, because there's no place for the meaning and author in its holy idol. It's forbidden. There's not even a little refer to neither author nor meaning in the lessons that he took for years. Then that brain starts to approach to universe just as an object, not as a book having an author and a meaning. Naturally, as it proceeds in this system, it moves away from the author, the meaning gets closer to atheism. It's a normal result. The God he believes in explodes Big Bang at least. He's losing on one hand, but gaining on the other hand. Yes, he measures the ink very well. He splits the atom. He measures the distance between us and the sun with centimetric precisions. He even finds new books in the book he examines with microscope, but he just increases the book number he insults by not reading it. He measures that the speed of the globe on which we are comfortable as 108 kilometers h. He observes that harmful lights aren't allowed inside by an ozone layer. Boo, he can't read the incredible message, art, mercy in it. He finds that having 6 or 4 fingers is biomechanically unadvantageous. He measures this very well. But he can see the message, art and mercy in having 5 fingers. He knows everything about that 80 kg dialysis machine can't completely fill the bill of a 80 kidney. But the mechanism he needs to see that he's not in hospital because his kidneys are worked every day, and to praise for this has already been blunt. The organism talking, walking, thinking, getting excited, etc. was once a drop. He says that a drop has become a human. He observes all that phases, but he can't know the author because he can't see the message, mercy and art in it. And there are many other books that he can measure very well but can't read. Let alone reading the book, he finds his own explanations to deny the author. He states polymerase, a reason for that 9-month period. It is like to assume that every letter in the book is written by the previous one. It is like to assume that the sentences in the book is written by the grammar rules itself. Every day, I am saved from hundreds of diseases. That rules, write this sentence. Having 5 fingers and kidneys are thanks to DNA, according to him. It is just like to assume that an artful building is built by the project notebook of it. I'm not joking, we've talked about this before. Those are what they really say. Guys, this is what makes a master hurts Muhammad people. According to the author, to read the book, to consider its message, 1,400 years ago, this method was hit the top by him. Before the ayahs came down, he was seeking for in the cave. Hira literally means to seek for. He was thinking about the existence. And he was aspiring to read. That's why the book's language was taught to him through the ayahs. With Miraj, all meanings was shown to him in the book. Because he was the one who knows the language of Lord, which is the language of the universe, he is designated for the all mankind as a teacher of reading in the name of Lord, who creates even if he is illiterate to others' languages. What will make us wise is to learn this language as much as possible and dealing with the book as its author wants. This is the secret between an illiterate aunt in Anatolia and an atheist scientist splitting the atom. That aunt is wiser than him in the presence of Allah. Because she says, Alhamdulillah, when Se sees a tomato, the one who read the book is more important for the author. It would be better if she knew the order in tomatoes atoms and add them to this, Alhamdulillah. But it doesn't matter, she's still reading the book. She has made the right decision about her method and teacher. The student in the story would be more valuable for his teacher if he read the book, even if 1 page, instead of doing that horrible presentation. Maybe he would get a DD, right? I'm an electrical and electronics engineer. I'm dealing with the electronics part of the universe book. Maybe you are a chemist and dealing with the chemistry part. Doctors deal with the human organism part, etc. Most of us deal with the different parts of universe as our jobs. But what makes us wise is to use the Prophet's method to approach our jobs. A biologist who follows that method doesn't only measure the book anymore. He reads billions of wisdom actions in those species. A chemist following this method reads that we can make pills thanks to the order in reactions between the elements. And he reads that thanks to the order and scale of those reactions, we can make medicines. An electronics engineer following this method reads the fact that the order is kept stable in the characteristics of electrons in semiconductor substances, and we can make logic gates and transistors by switching them. So we can build all of today's technology thanks to it. He can read this message. It doesn't have to be technical so much, of course. We have breakfast, right? The pleasure we get from thousands of different kinds of food, the pleasure that is created in our brains as a result of an interlocking of legs when we play soccer, or the airiness we feel when we drink a cold water while we're sweaty, the sweetness created in a baby that enchants us, and so on and so forth, all are the books that we're supposed to read. Here's how you learn to read all this from your teacher. Blessed are the organisms of the Husseini calendar, who can address the author of the worlds by presenting the praises and hamd in all these activities in 5 sessions a day. Let's finish with the catchphrase of Zubair Gunduzal. Reading is one action, but everything comes out of that one action. How it's possible? I get FF. I'd worked really hard. It was a book. You were supposed to read it.